Speaking of fireworks for the 4th of July, it is time to bring in Jim Lynch and cover your assets. And Jim, of course, is an independent voice on Wall Street, the economy, politics, sports, fireworks. He brings many, many years of experience to those subjects and more. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Jim Lynch. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning. Good morning. I was going to cancel the 4th of July, but I'll leave it alone. In the, democratic and, free speech.
Yes.
Let's get right to it, folks. I'm going to read you from an open letter from 150 scholars who teach about the Holocaust. And this is on CNN, if you don't remember what I'm saying, because the words, I think, are pretty important. This open letter from 150 scholars on the Holocaust who teach. Their open letter is to the Holocaust Museum. And it's about the furor that some people have created or gotten upset that the southern border atrocity has been compared to the Holocaust. And here's how it goes from these scholars on the Holocaust. The very core of the Holocaust, education, is to alert the public to dangerous developments that facilitate human rights violations and pain and suffering, pointing to the similarities across time and space is essential for this task. The open letter reads, very, very significant. What people are doing, responsible people, in their gut, they know the atrocities, the negativity, the evil that was prevalent during the Holocaust is what we're seeing at the southern border. And not trying to equate the pain and suffering of any group or any individual. The letter is basically implying we're all one group, and X amount of human beings, namely children and women bereft of their husbands and any help, are being persecuted, starved, kept in terrible conditions. So I begin the show with that, and I humbly, but in your own best interest, I ask you that you go to CNN, just read this again, and get it into your mindset. The reason being, it's not just it's right, it's wrong. It's far greater than that. The essence of this letter is indicative of what we are going through as a country, as we have somebody who either on a planned basis, on a rational basis, is doing everything possible to denigrate human beings, make them helpless, make them weak, make them vulnerable, and therefore subject to a autocratic force such as a dictatorship. What we've been seeing here, practiced by, frankly, and he is solely responsible. Trump cannot give this responsibility to his minions, be it Pompeo or the soldier in the trenches. He is responsible for denigrating and in the process destroying parts of our society, of our government, of the values that have made us all so good and happy through trial and tribulation over the last 240 years of our existence. Number one, and most importantly, we cannot let this man continue this. We cannot allow this man to take away our values, our morality, our humanity. We must stop him. And we can stop him. It's in the Constitution. Obviously, right now, three bodies of government, one body is having a tough time reining in Trump. That's the House. But in time, they will rein him in and bring him to heel and get rid of him. But for you individuals out there who have been accepting Trump's behavior as that of a buffoon, more of that, you are allowing yourself to get into Never Never Land as people did in Germany when Hitler began his rise to power. From the beer gardens in Hamburg through, if you'll watch it now, all of those parades and marches that were done, where with his rhetoric, which went on and frequently made no sense, rallied the basic instinct of the people who were listening to him. That is exactly what we are seeing now with a man who basically is playing with your mind. We're going to war with this one. Oh, no, we're going to let him have nuclear. We have a treaty with Iran, but no, we were going to break it so we can create a crisis. So like the fireman who lights the house on fire, he can come and put the fire out. If this was as simple as that, it'd be fine. But there is a reason for his menacing, and it's to take control of the citizens of this country. And we cannot stand for it. We've got to stand up. We're in the process, in my opinion, on a political citizenship basis of a changeover from the old to the young, from those who are content to take money from drug companies to those who want fairness to those people who are ill. So that's where I am. But I want to end with this at this moment. I will mention it at the end of the show. I was going to begin with what I'm probably just going to mention now to you, and that is the story of a man, a Jewish man, who was born in this country. He entered the Second World War as a soldier. He worked eventually in intelligence, though he was at the Battle of the Bulge. And this man rose to be the one who basically prosecuted 30 Nazi SS people. And his courage was incredible because they had a lot of trials going on at Nuremberg, Germany, which is where the trials were held after the Second World War. And this man, because he was charged with getting evidence, he found 4 binders. And those binders basically implicated the Nazis that he was trying. And they clearly indicated that these Nazis, these SS, were charged with killing Jews. Just killing Jews, not because they stole, nor because killing them. 1 million Jews were killed this way, okay, by these SS guys. This man, a young man at age 27, became the one who would prosecute. Why? Because they were so busy they couldn't handle all the cases they had. He successfully convicted these guys. 4 of them were hung. This is such a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful story, which you can see on 60 Minutes on Sunday. Leslie Stahl does a magnificent job in the interview. The man's name is Mr. Ben, and I'll spell it because I don't want to mispronounce it. F-E-R-E-N-Z-E. Ben, B-E-F-E-R-E-N-Z-C. He is 99 years old. He's 5 foot tall. He's very coherent, and he is very, very much in saying that this thing never happens again. He makes one point towards the end of the interview, which we should all consider in light of what has happened in Iraq and Afghanistan and Vietnam and Korea. Human beings are not murderers. Human beings are not murderers. War creates the environment whereby human beings become murderers. Right or wrong, that quite obviously is a fact. So I turn it over to my younger people.
Well, as we're sitting here on July 2nd,
I can't hear you, Marshall. I'm sorry.
As we sit here on July 2nd and approach the Independence Day for our country, people have to realize, in my opinion, one thing. You take a look at the history of the world as we know it. If you've studied, or not even studied, if you even tried to learn in school a little bit, you will see that through the different eras, the horrors of the way human beings treat other human beings,
and the genocides,
never seem to go away. And what makes it even more spectacularly unbelievable is that in today's media-powered environment, if people want to bring up the fact that when you imprison children at the border who are trying to get asylum by just showing up at the border and seeking asylum, and you separate them from their parents, what people the way it gets compared to the Holocaust, the way it should be compared to the way we set up internment camps as the United States with Japanese, is that it's the beginning of something that has to stop. It's the treatment of human beings that has to stop. And
Marshall,
what?
I think that you had the best idea. This is something that you said, and this is something that happened, and I just thought it showed a great deal of wisdom. And you can, when the border security discussion was just beginning, and it was criminals and border security and border security and border security, and it was being perceived of as a crisis, but it was being called a manufactured crisis and this, that, and the other. Marshall turned to me at one point and he said, they're making a massive mistake here. They need to call it a humanitarian crisis because that's what it is. And that was probably in February, Marshall?
It was a while ago. But you see, humanitarian crisis, the word humanitarian crisis means, unfortunately, different things to different people. And in politics, humanitarian crisis isn't, this is going to sound strange, isn't the first things that moves people. Not with this administration. It's the thing that moves people is the fear of crime. It really is. I mean, it's the fear of crime. And
but what was so smart about that is you started with the fear of crime. Yeah. And then the only reason there's discussion and action is because it was, you then added, this is almost like a cooking recipe in politics, you added the humanitarian element.
Well, the humanitarian element was always there, and that's right. It's always been a humanitarian. As a matter of fact, if you look back through history, the humanitarian side of it far outweighs anything else. If you look back at the internment of the Japanese citizens in this country, if you look back at what happened to the Jews, you can also go look back at England when the United States was. I mean, every century, every decade, every whatever you want to say it.
You can safely say it was ever thus.
The world does not seem to learn from its mistakes on the way it treats people, whether they're black, white, red, orange, brown. It doesn't seem to matter, Jim. What seems to happen is people lose sight of the fact there's a great cartoon that people should look up and see, and it's a picture of 4 eggs. All right, chicken eggs. One's brown, one's white, one's tan. They're different colored eggs. They crack those eggs open, and they put them in a pan. And guess what?
They all look the same. I mean, they're fried eggs.
They're eggs.
Right.
They're eggs.
And what's so critical about that,
I was
especially...
going to say America.
No, really, they're eggs. It doesn't matter what color.
It's not just America. It's any country
it's the
has...
Right.
It's a composition.
It's the world. It doesn't matter what color you are on the outside. When you strip that skin away, guess what? We're all flesh and bones on the inside. We're the same.
And with that in mind, the way that pretty much every single news story is like, oh, well, this person is gay and very outspoken about this one. This one is that. This one is comes from a... Crack the egg, folks.
And I think what makes it worse for us as Americans, Jim, is that we had a president before Donald Trump who was not a perfect president by any means. Don't get me wrong. I have my problems with some of the things Barack Obama did as president. But the respect and the restraint that he showed to people of all religions, races, colors, political parties, and everything was incredible. And then you switch over immediately after his 8 years to someone who operates in a total different atmosphere and environment, someone who does not accept outside input, someone who goes on his own gut instincts, not just 5% of the time, but 100% of the time. And so when you have that just collisions, it's almost like you have 2 tidal waves that come together, and there's an explosion of water. That explosion of water is the comparison of this to the Holocaust. That explosion of water is the. I mean, you can compare this to the encampment with the Japanese. That explosion of water is purely emotional, and I think as we approach the 4th of July, Jim, and I'll stop speaking here in a moment, that I think every person who lives in this country, and I'm not. If you notice, I didn't say citizen, person. When the census is taken. The census, as was written up originally by the founders of this country, did not say a census shall be taken of every American citizen. It says a census shall be taken of every person residing in the United States. That's what we have to do. We have to strip away identities and say people. Because if you use the name and you use the word people, it takes away black, white, red, yellow, Latino, Jewish. It takes it all away. And we are all, once again, people. And Jim, I think that's the thing we have to learn again on the 4th of July, is that we're all people. We're all people. And we celebrate the 4th of July in the United States, and people celebrate other things elsewhere. But we're all people. Yes, we're citizens of a country, one and our, but we're people. And that's the thing that people have to understand and learn as we approach 4th of July. I'm done.
That said, a great, great thing to do in that spirit is to get a copy of the Constitution. You can get it on the internet. Or the better thing is to buy a little small one and read it. And read those words that you've just mentioned, Marshall, and read those words in there about the freedom of the press. And read the whole thing, because it's not that long. And you'll see how elegant it is. You'll see how it was giving us the architecture for freedom. And all we have to do is be open to the liberty and freedom that the Constitution, which is the law of the land, provides us, and then practice accordingly. It's really incredible that not we, but somehow people, and everybody has their own problems, starting with me. We somehow, the mind is tricky. A friend of mine who used to say, if only I could get beyond my mind because of all of the crap that comes in and the confusion and everything else. Well, we can, okay? You just have to say it simply. You're living and breathing. Yesterday, I was never going to come home. I was out doing some chores, and I said, I'm staying out here. My God, it's so beautiful. And you look at the blue sky, and you breathe, and you look at people coming and going and saying hello and this and that, and the warm humanity that is truly out there. And that's embodied. That is the spirit of the Constitution. Right. If you're a U.S. citizen or wanting to be, and you're in this country, if there's anything you should learn, and I'm not being sarcastic here, people are on the border dying to come into this place because they see it as a beacon of freedom. They see it as a place of safety. They see it as a place to raise a family, to have opportunity. Gratitude is something I think that is sorely lacking in America.
All right. Well,
we've got so much, we just don't appreciate it.
Well, enjoy the 4th of July, Jim.
Happy Independence Day.
God bless you both. God bless everybody out there.
All right.
Go America. See you.
Jim Lynch, and Cover Your Assets here on the Breakfast Club on Robin Hood Radio.